Ever glance at the tag on your t-shirt and really think about the journey it took to get to you? Well, today we're going to unpack the incredible story of an industry that didn't just make clothes, it literally built an entire nation. Let's get into it.
So it all kicks off with this number right here, 84%. I mean, what on earth could be that dominant?
Yep, 84% of Bangladesh's entire export earnings, all from one single industry. We're talking about the ready-made garment industry, or RMG for short. Think about that for a second. That's a level of economic dependence that's, well, just staggering.
Which, naturally leads us to the big question we're tackling today. How in the world did the clothes you're probably wearing right now literally build an entire nation?
All right, first up, backbone of a nation. And that's not just a fancy title. We really need to get our heads around the sheer scale of this thing.
Okay, so this chart really lays it all out. We already know about that huge 84% of total exports. But look closer. It's also more than 14% of the entire country's GDP. And get this, a whopping 40% of all industrial value add. This isn't just an industry. For Bangladesh, it's the industry. It's an economic lifeline, plain and simple. But, the money is only half the story. The other half, well, it's about people. A lot of people. 4.4 million to be exact.
And we're not just talking about jobs here. This is so much bigger. The vast majority of these workers are women. For millions of them, this industry was the very first ticket out of poverty, the first real shot at having their own money, their own independence. It's been a catalyst for huge social change all across the country.
So, how did this whole thing happen? How did this modern giant just appear? Well, to get that, we've got to rewind, way back. See, Bangladesh's story with textiles, it didn't just pop up in the 80s. Nope, we're talking centuries of history here. And this slide just nails that history of extremes. On one hand, you had this ancient fame. The region was world-renowned for these incredible luxury fabrics, like muslin, stuff European royalty would wear. But then, during British rule, those local industries were basically dismantled, to make room for British imports. It's a total phoenix from the ashes kind of story.
So with that backstory, the stage is set for the modern explosion. And I mean explosion. It starts small, right? 1960, one pioneer company. Then in 79, you get the real game changer, Desh Garments, the first to focus 100% on exports. But check this out. The real boom hits in the mid-80s. The number of factories goes from 47 to almost 600 in just a few years. It's insane. And you fast forward to today, it's a global powerhouse, pulling in over $31 billion a year.
Okay, so we've got the history, we've got the mind-boggling scale, but what actually happens in these factories? What's the anatomy of this massive economic engine?
Right, so the whole journey from fabric to fashion can have like 20 different steps, but let's break it down. It all starts with a design from a buyer, which gets made into a blueprint, a pattern. Then, huge sheets of fabric are cut and sorted. Step 3 is the real heart of the factory, the sewing floor, where all those pieces get assembled. After that, it's all about finishing touches, attaching tags, ironing, making it look perfect, and finally, it all gets packed up and shipped out to stores all over the world. And here's what it all leads to, the final products. We're talking billions of items every single year. Woven stuff like shirts and pants, knitted things like t-shirts. This massive industrial machine is just constantly churning, turning raw materials into the clothes that fill up our closets.
All right, but for an industry this huge, it's never just a simple success story, right? There's always more to it. So let's take a candid look at its strengths and its weaknesses. So looking at the internal factors, the strengths are pretty obvious. You've got a huge experienced workforce. They're absolute kings when it comes to knitwear. And this is pretty cool. They have the most certified green factories on the planet. But on the other hand, there are weaknesses. Worker productivity isn't as high as competitors. Lead times are longer, so it takes more time to get stuff to market, and there's a real need for more skilled mid-level managers.
Okay, now let's look outside the industry itself. The opportunities are massive. A lot of brands are shifting orders away from China, which is a huge opening, and there's a ton of growth in new markets like Japan and India. But the threats are serious too. Energy prices are going up, the ports and transportation can be a real headache, and they depend a lot on foreign raw materials, which is always a risky spot to be in.
So all of this, it brings us to the future of fashion in Bangladesh. With all these pros and cons, all these potential wins and losses, what's next?
Well, the road ahead is definitely not an easy one. I think the big takeaway is that just being cheap isn't going to cut it anymore. To really compete, they've got to lock down a stable energy supply, improve the ports and roads, and, this is a big one, diversify. They need to move beyond basic t-shirts and start making more complex, higher-value stuff like high-tech sportswear. And of course, the holy grail would be getting duty-free access to the US market. That would be an absolute game changer.
And this quote just says it all, doesn't it? The next challenge isn't just about growth, but about evolution. For so long, the story was just about getting bigger, faster. Now, it's about getting smarter.
Which leads us with this final, really interesting question to think about. You know, as we all start demanding more from our clothes, we want sustainability, we want ethical production, can this industry, the one that literally built a nation, can it now lead the way in redefining the entire future of fashion? It's a huge question. And the answer, well, it's going to shape a lot more than just one country. It's going to shape what's in all of our closets for years to come.